The City, 1947. An urban jungle struggling to escape a hell of its own creation. The Green-Eyed Diner, 2 a.m., the late-night place to meet, but not be seen. A place for the people in the shadows to do their dirty work. Today on the Comic Book Report, Dick Tracy, Volume 1 from Mad Cave Studios. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm back in the world of Mad Cave Studios to review a book that a lot of you in the comments have been requesting I review. I am so happy to have gotten this copy from Mad Cave to review for all of you. This was a ton of fun. Of course, we're talking about this Dick Tracy graphic novel here, this trade paperback. Again, this is one I have heard some positive buzz about. I am a fan of crime noir genre in general, and yeah, this was a real treat. I can't wait to talk about it today. Before we dive in though, again just a huge thank you to those at Mad Cave for sending over this review copy, and as always I like to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to it in this video's description, and if you see anything on that site you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, The Comic Book Report, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's trade paperback review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The comics in this volume were written by Alex Segura and Michael Moreci, and illustrated by Geraldo Borges. The comics in this volume were published by Mad Cave Studios beginning in 2024. The volume itself collects Dick Tracy issues 1 through 5. And finally, this is a standard size trade paperback collection with glossy print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 130 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look at the front cover for today's trade paperback collection. Right away, we have the creators up at the top. We have a Mad Cave anniversary logo there, along with the title of the series, Dick Tracy. We also have him there on the front cover, kind of coming out of the shadows. I really love this. I actually think this is the cover for the first issue in this collection as well. So definitely a well-picked cover for this collection. Just really evocative and interesting right from the jump. Transitioning to the spine design now, we do have the Mad Cave logo up there at the top. Then we have a little image of Dick Tracy, followed by the title, Dick Tracy, with that stylized font. The list of the creators there, and then a little Volume 1. Really like it. We're retaining that black and yellow color scheme as well. I think everything looks quite nice, looks great on a bookshelf, and I can't wait for the hopeful Volume 2. Now along the back cover, we have more black and yellow and some red here. I love to see it. We have an interesting kind of collage of different imagery from the book, kind of with a yellow wash over it. We have the title again, a blurb about the series. We have some pricing information, the logo. We have kind of some silhouettes of a few characters, all those things, pretty much everything you'd expect to see on the back of a collection. Honestly, I really like the design. I think they did a great job. And now, just for all you prospective collectors out there, I did want to show a quick look at the binding for this collection. As I mentioned, it is a glued binding, all pretty standard fare for a trade paperback. Maybe a little gutter loss, but honestly not too bad at all, especially with those white borders around a lot of the paneling here. Yeah, so no real complaints for me. The book didn't lay down tremendously well, but again, I had no real problems here. Okay, now as we make our way into today's collection, we do have a title page, followed by a 2-page spread that again shows the titles, this time along with some of the creators. After that, we have a publication information page, and then we have this neat little chapter break. It does say Chapter 1. After you turn that page, we do have the Virgin textless cover for issue 1, and then we jump into the first issue. I've really liked how a lot of these paperback collections over at Mad Cave seem to be mapped, where we do get those chapter breaks along with the issue covers. characters, I think it's just a really great way to punctuate my reading experience. It adds a little bit more art or flair as well. Anyway, just a really commendable thing here that Mad Cave does. I know I've seen it in a couple of their paperbacks. But yes, we go right away into the start of this book, and it basically sets the scene for the crime we'll be investigating throughout most of this first arc. We basically have some shady character entering a diner at like 2 a.m. He interrupts this kind of late night meeting between a couple folks, and we find out shortly after that he guns down pretty much everyone in this diner. I should say at this point as well, this book has scenes of pretty explicit violence and gore or blood, so just be advised. I don't know that it's the most extreme I've ever seen, but it's certainly not something I'd recommend for younger readers. But again, as always, reader discretion advised. Beyond that, there's really not too much explicit material that I can recall, perhaps some swearing as well. I don't recall seeing any sexuality or nudity, but again, just worth mentioning. As we go in, though, we basically have the detective, Dick Tracy, show up to the crime scene, and he wants to get to the bottom of what happened here in his city. From there, for most of the narrative, we do follow the titular Dick Tracy, but there are moments where we follow some of his supporting cast of characters. Like there's a daughter of, I believe, one of the victims, or someone that's associated with what happened in this crime. She's also trying to have her own investigation, not wanting to get bogged down by perhaps corrupted law enforcement or things of that nature, you know. There's also another person that Dick Tracy served with back in the war who is kind of getting mixed up in an interesting crime thing happening in the city as well. At any rate, the primary cast of characters that are the allies here are Dick Tracy, this young woman, and of course his friend from the war. They band together to basically try to find real justice in a corrupt system. We have sort of mob kind of underpinnings here as well. We have organized crime creeping up. There's the insinuation that it's infiltrated the police department, and that's something you see explored more toward the end of this collection. But along the way, you have a lot of really solid detective work, a lot of really cool tropes and trappings from the noir genre. Set in the 1940s, this is also a really fun kind of period piece. Obviously, Dick Tracy is such an old and beloved character, and I loved the refreshing of this old intellectual property. Again, I heard a lot of positive buzz about this series. I know I had an opportunity to interview Alex Segura for another project he was doing over at Dynamite. I think we touched on this series a little bit. I'll see if I can tag that video if I remember. But yeah, really a great creator there, and this is one of the first times I've had an opportunity to read a little more of his stuff, and I really am digging it. I think that the tone for this detective work is just really great. It's gritty, it's terse where it needs to be, it's really just direct, and yeah, just really, really fun. I love the narration, I love the action sequences we get. I think everything is extraordinarily well paced. The characters are all fairly likable, and the ones that aren't likable I think are done with intention. The villains as well are fun. To see who's behind some of the central crimes and the massacre, and who hired who, and what is the biggest fish here, and what are their ultimate ends. And just seeing Dick Tracy kind of tiptoe on the lines of the law, where he's trying not to really move too far outside of the boundaries of the law where able, but he's willing to bend a little bit if it's for the cause of what he says is justice. And also with his allies who are not police officers, they're able to bend even further, and with all of them together, you just have this sense that they're really fighting for right by any means necessary. Looking over at the art direction for this series as well, I think that this is really another shining mark for this series. I think it just really fits the storytelling overall. It still feels very warm and welcoming, while also being, again, just kind of gritty. Like I said, instances of violence. I think that this artist really understands the sense of place. The setting as well feels like a living, breathing character in its own right. This was an immensely immersive series, and I think that that's so important when you have a noir kind of period piece story like this. It just, everything really served the overall storytelling vision and arc in my mind, and that was right down to the visuals. I also really commend this creator's sense of motion and how he depicts that, and again, these action sequences. It was really dynamic. It felt cinematic in nature. It's really easy to see this being an adaptation somewhere down the line if they ever got to that, and you could probably follow a lot of these panelings like storyboards and ways to capture specific scenes, and I know that's what a lot of these creators try to do, but I just think that this is something the artist understood tremendously. It has a very cinematic quality. Going back to a couple plot points in this book, I'm not going to really speak to every single thing that happens across these 5 issues. You'll get to read some for yourself if you pick this up. But suffice it to say, it is, good guys versus bad guys, but sometimes that line is a bit blurred. We do have some corruption in that police department. We have Dick Tracy kind of brushing his captain a little bit wrongly here as he tries to find these leads wherever they may go. And I like that. I like that there wasn't anyone that was perfectly squeaky clean. I think that there is a lot of shades of gray morally in this book, although some of the villains are just tremendously dark, and I did like that as well. But the heroes aren't maybe as shiny in spite of the yellow costume. There is something intensely moralistic about our main hero, though, and I did like that. I like that he really tried to find his brand of justice by whatever means needed. And yeah, I enjoyed it. There is something throwback about this. It doesn't feel like it alienates the intellectual property. Like, this does feel like how I would expect any Dick Tracy kind of serial or kind of show or comic to play out. It just feels modern as far as the narrative style, and I really liked that. I think that this was such a wonderful brand to bring back in this way. I certainly understand the buzz and positive reception this series seems to be getting, and honestly, I agree. This was fun from beginning to end, and it left me wanting more. I will say, going into this, being a volume 1 and an issue 1 to start out, you don't really need to know anything about this character, this world, or his history to enjoy this read. It can be read by new readers and returning fans of Dick Tracy alike. I am also happy to say that this first arc feels like its own complete story. Yes, are there some dangling plot threads, or you have the sense that there's going to be ongoing and subsequent adventures? Yes, absolutely. But you can also read this as a one-and-done standalone if you want, and just enjoy a great and gripping story. This was just so much fun. I enjoyed the way the creators approached this character, and I just had so much fun from beginning all the way to the end. This is a series I will definitely try to follow in the future as more of these collections get released and as I'm able to pick them up. I should say at the back of the collection, we really don't have anything in way of extras other than some advertising for some other collections and a little bit of art at the very back. But otherwise, that's it for this trade paperback. This has been Dick Tracy from Mad Cave Studios. And now all that's left to do is to give this book a grade. This well-paced, gritty action thriller that also happens to be a period piece noir was a ton of fun. For this and so many other reasons, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Dick Tracy Volume 1 from Mad Cave Studios a B. To me, this is certainly a well above average read that I was just delighted to make my way through. Serving as a complete standalone arc while also leaving the door open for future adventures, this was such a fun toe into this broader world. An immensely immersive story that had a lot of really fun action set pieces. This is a book I'll be thinking about for some time. I've heard a lot of good reviews for this series, and now that I've read it, I can certainly see why. I completely agree. But let me know in the comments, have you been reading Dick Tracy from Mad Cave Studios? Let me know again in those comments, and thank you again to those at Mad Cave Studios for sending over this review copy in exchange for this honest review. And as always, thank you to each and every one of you for making it this far and for taking the journey along with us today. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave that like, those comments, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone, and have a good one.